we are able to get done. And that chasm exists because of the political paralysis. I identified the keep the lid on it mentality as a first barrier. The second barrier is, in my view, a more substantive barrier. If we could get past the keep the lid on it, here's the second very, very substantial hurdle that has to be cleared. It is a recognition that schools represent an ideal and indeed imperative way to deliver social services to our youth. Absolutely imperative way to deliver social services to our youth. We did not accept high risk, at risk, not just because the accident already happened, but because youth that we define in a broader category, complex needs youth, these youth require help. They require social services that we owe them as a society. Now we've decided, and I say quite properly, we've decided to keep them captive in schools. We say, legislatively, you shall attend. Not you can think about it. We say you must be there between 9 and 4 every day. We've decided that as a matter of law. Doesn't that decision to exercise that power come with the responsibility to deliver services to these youth? Leave compassion at the gate. Leave caring at the gate. Don't you have a legal responsibility to provide social services to these youth because you have chosen to insist at law they be in your four walls? The failure to acknowledge that our schools are more than simply about narrow, quote-unquote, education curriculum, that our schools are now about the delivery of social services in a complex urban center such as Toronto, the failure to appreciate that lies at the heart of the ridiculous squabbles about whether the province has given enough money to keep pools open. For God's sakes, who do you think suffer when those pools aren't open? The youth that have the greatest challenges in accessing services. Who do you think suffers? The board should be given credit, and I want to emphasize this. They've made apparent that their plan takes into account the highest priority neighborhoods in their pool closures. That is, they give priority to neighborhoods furthest from community centers, and they give priority to those neighborhoods that are the highest needs. But that's not enough, in my view, and I'm not talking about the school board. We shouldn't be talking about closing pools. We should be talking about building more. The province shouldn't tell us how many education dollars they've allotted. They should tell us about social services for youth. And they should recognize that schools do represent the potential community hub we speak to in the report. They do represent that opportunity. But we can't avail ourselves of that opportunity if we can't get past the reading, writing, and math syndrome, which is, why do we have schools to teach kids how to read, write, and do arithmetic? Complex needs youth are nowhere near being able to fit into that stream because they come to school not able to get to the reading, writing, and adding part. They come to school with baggage that represents their challenge, their reality. We keep them captive. We have a chance to help them, but because we don't appreciate that social services delivery through schools is the way to do it, they don't get help. And we don't help the teachers faced with these challenges. We don't give them help. In the end, that hurdle, that inability to clear and understand, to clear that hurdle about the delivery of social services completely stymies any true movement forward. We have made recommendations around the notion of schools as a community hub. We have made recommendations around abandoning the ridiculous funding that fails to take into account these issues. But we've heard nothing from the minister about these recommendations. It does not bode well. It doesn't bode well. We are going to have an opportunity for some questions following my presentation, so I want to make sure I don't go on too much at length. But I want to address some, what I say are key areas that ought to be of interest to you as advocates on behalf of parents and students, and ought to be of interest to you as parents. The School Safety Community Advisory Panel recommended that the safe schools culture and the safe schools reality be abandoned. Pure and simple. That is, we went into communities for whom the term safe schools administrator is code for alienation and their child being kicked out. We went into communities in which when they get a knock on the door from the quote-unquote safe schools administrator, they see something different. They see the retired police officer, and you should know the vast majority of safe school administrators historically have been retired police officers from the Toronto Police Service. They see the retired police officer. They see the enforcement arm of the TDSB. Now, the reality is that there has been a shift in the so-called Safe Schools Department. They have tried to shift away. But in our consultations with them, they acknowledged on record that it's not working. They agreed with us, the Safe Schools Department agreed with us, that it's time to give up the candle and dump the language because people can't get past it. The victimization and oppression was simply too high historically. Youth suspended in droves. This notion of attempting to discipline kids back into being re-engaged failed. But it's left a bitterness. In our experience as a panel, we were dumbfounded by the repeated submission to us as a panel that there should be a repealing of the Safe Schools Act.